Hello, California, and welcome to this week's edition of Your Financial Compass, brought to you by the team of Bulman Wealth Group. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio, we have the founder, Chris Bulman, and financial advisor, Scott Valan. The title of today's show is How to Remove Your Wealth from Washington. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss it. Chris, Scott, great to be here with both of you. How are you this week?
I'm good. My wife, she's taken on a new hobby. She likes to bake bread. She started this year, and she asked the other day, she's like, are you going to mention it on the show? I said, yeah. She's like, why would you do that? I said, well, since you asked me, I would. You know, everyone has hobbies. Chris likes to chart alien spacecraft. She makes bread. So I thought, what better way to start the show?
Oh, awesome. Well, now I'm hungry, so thank you for
that. Yeah, there you go. It is good, though. I'm
that.
biased, but it is good. He can't eat it because he's gluten-free, but it is good.
Awesome. Well, we are going to be talking today about your potential tax liability, your potential tax bill in retirement. And the reality is, when it comes to taxes, it can be one of the most detrimental factors to your security in retirement. And a lot of folks aren't aware of that. Plus, the rules are always changing. So that's why we called today's show How to Remove Your Wealth from Washington. We're going to be talking about lots of different kinds of non-taxable income and strategies that you can be employing even now to help mitigate that tax bill in retirement. But to kick off the show, why is it so important for folks to really start thinking through and paying attention to their potential tax liability in retirement?
I'll take this one, Scott, because
why'd you point at me?
I wanted to cut you off. You know, it relates to the compound effect, really. If you think about the compound effect, a funny story, not so funny when I see myself here on camera, but funny story. Back before my fourth son was born, which he was born in 2015, I was working out 5 days a week. I led a boot camp, like a kickboxing boot camp, every day, 5 days a week for an hour.
Wow.
And I was in shape back then. I'm not saying now, but so back then. And then my wife said, you are not leaving us every morning for an hour and a half to go work out. We have 3 toddlers and a 5-year-old or something, and I need your help. So I started baking cookies and apple pies, and the compound effect took over.
Taxes, right?
So 20 pounds later, you know, that's what happens. With taxes, you have to plan in advance. So we're all going to, hopefully, if we make it to retirement, we're going to have to pay taxes into and through retirement if we don't plan properly. So what are the things that we can, you know, rewind the clock back 10, 15, 20 years, what are the things we can be doing so that we have a better more tax efficient retirement income stream once we do get there?
And it's just being aware, like you said, of the problem. When we do seminars all the time, and when I'm up there, I get to the point about taxes, and I say, raise your hand if you think 5 years from now, 10 years from now, taxes are going to go down. And 100% of the time people laugh because it's a given.
Especially now.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought, yeah, okay. I lost my train of thought. Taxes. So everyone knows they're going to go up. California as a whole, everyone complains about taxes, which, you know, no one likes paying more than they have to. But you look at the history of taxes, and as much as they sting now, we're actually at historically low rates, which is kind of mind-boggling, because you think back into the late 40s, there was something called marginal tax rate, which is the highest percentage of federal taxes, percentage-wise. Right now it's 37. Back then it was in the 90s, 90+%. So I imagine, you know, for the highest income earners, that they reach a certain point, 94 cents of every dollar they earn left their pocket. So the reason I bring that up is, if we're at 37 now, we've been at 94, there's a wide chasm there that precedent was set. I don't think we're going to go that high, Lord willing, but they're going to go up. And it's just being aware. It's coming, as Chris said, and we'll talk more about it later in the show. What can we start doing now? You have to be aware of the problem to know that it needs to be fixed. And that's definitely where we want to start, is like, look at history, look at where we're going, look at the debt. All these things contribute to that, to know, okay, and now we need to really be mindful of this. As much as they sting now, they're going to be even worse when you retire.
Exactly. And I think the reason it is such an issue for so many Americans is that the majority of Americans have the bulk of their wealth saved up in tax-deferred accounts. Things like traditional 401ks, traditional IRAs. And the sad reality is that those are potentially going to be taxed at higher rates later on when you need the money in retirement. You know, we were sold and told that, oh, this is a good thing, defer the tax, you should be in a lower tax bracket once you get to retirement. But a lot of folks are finding out that that's not what's happening to them.
No, and you know, Chris has used this analogy before, this story. It's like, when you're putting money into a 401k, as you said, you defer the taxes. You're putting the money in pre-tax.
Right.
comes out of your paycheck. And over the years it grows, hopefully, and you keep putting it in. But when you're entering into that, in a way you're entering into business with the IRS. Because they're your business partner, you might not know it, but they can at any point say, well, right now, if you pull money out, you owe us this percentage. But 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, when you really need that money, we need, instead of 25%, we want 35%.
Right.
We're in business with them, so we're a prisoner to what the rate is at that particular point. If we know that rates are going to go up, when you really need that money, you're going to give that much more to Uncle Sam, and we're not as mindful about that all those years of putting the money away, and that's where 401ks are a bit flawed in that way, at least a traditional 401k.
Yeah, well, and that's why we're devoting today's entire show to how to remove your wealth from Washington. But before we get into some of those strategies, I think it is important also to set the context for the fact that you all are not CPAs. You don't do tax preparation, but what you do is you engage in strategic tax planning for your clients. So talk a little bit about that difference.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to understanding the different types of taxable buckets or tax-free buckets that you can invest into. And it ranges from life insurance investments to Roth IRA investments to traditional IRA to 401ks to tax-free 401ks, Roth 401ks, 403bs, 457s. There's a lot of different ways that you can do it. But it's important to understand it's like putting the right gas in your vehicle. How is it going to? Once in Germany, I put the wrong gas in.
And twice he's driven away from the gas.
Hey, a client called while I was,
pump
and I
still
took the
in
call.
it twice, not once but twice.
No.
It was years ago. So, but
That
I
just
did. I
shows your
didn't cause
dedication
it.
to your
Yeah,
client.
he was
clients, yes.
locked into a meeting.
So speaking of losing their train of thought, it really matters. When you plan in advance. Put the right gas in your vehicle so that the engine doesn't stop up if you put diesel into an unleaded vehicle.
Right.
Same thing if you invest all of your money to be tax deferred, thinking that you're going to be in a lower tax bracket when you get to retirement. Number one, most people make as much money in retirement, most of our clients, as they did when they were working. Number two, if you do that and the tax rates go up, now you're really in a pickle because you're going to have less spendable income.
Exactly.
So you really want to be planning up front. If I put this money into Roth today or convert it to Roth today, what will that do for me today? What kind of tax impact does it have today, but also 20 years from now, 30 years from now? What impact does it have on my children as far as legacy and the money transferring to them? Because there's impacts all along the way that most people don't think about until they do a comprehensive financial plan. Now, I can have somebody in that's 30 or 40 years old that's making $500,000 a year, and I can show them this is the impact on your retirement. And every time, once we get to age 73, they say, what in the heck is that? Why did my income jump so much? It shows that I don't have any bills, my house is paid off, I'm not spending as much. Why do I have so much income and pay so much taxes? Well, that's because you have to take the money back out. The government makes you, and they get to tell you, as he was, Scott was saying.
Still Scott. Yeah.
Still Scott. As Scott was saying, they get to tell you not only how much you have to take out, but how much taxes you have to pay on it.
Right, and those are those required minimum distributions, which we've talked about on the show.
Which a lot of people aren't familiar with unless they're helping their parents take income or something.
Yep.
A lot of people in their 40s, 50s don't even know what that is yet.
Exactly, and not to go down that hole because we could do a whole show just on RMDs. We have in the past, but if you don't take the money, then you're also hit not only with the tax, but an additional 25% penalty from the IRS. So it's non-negotiable. You have to do it, and that can really impact. And it's almost like it creates a ticking tax time bomb for a lot of folks that they have to then try to navigate.
Either in your lifetime or your children's as they inherit it.
Right. Yeah. Well, I know we're going to get into throughout the rest of the show lots of different types of non-taxable income, the kind of income the IRS can't touch. Those are the strategies we want to be able to discuss with you today. But for those watching who've never really engaged in strategic tax planning, I hear this all the time. Folks are working with another financial advisor, but often other financial advisors are not having these kinds of tax planning conversations. So talk about how when someone comes in and gets a financial compass review from you all, which is completely complimentary, what are they going to receive from a tax planning perspective as a result of meeting with you guys?
So everyone is bothered by taxes. I mean, I would imagine there's not a single person alive that it's not their favorite thing to do and pay. So when we sit down and we're looking at all these different things in regards to your full financial picture, taxes is such an important thing. And like we said, for years, we're putting money into these accounts, not thinking about the tax ramifications. If this is you, let's sit down and chat, and we're going to look to see what the taxable impact will be in the future if we don't make changes. So that kind of opens our eyes to it. And it's better to find out this 5 years, 10 years in advance so you can start to plan now. You don't want to find out 2 months in advance like, oh my gosh, I have to start RMDs next year and I'm going to owe all this money. This is why we want to start planning sooner and not just planning on where's the money going to come from, but planning how will taxes affect me and what can I be doing in a proactive sense so they don't sneak up on me and I'm paying less than I have to in the long run in regards to taxes.
Right. Well, I know we're going to get into a lot more detail on how to do just that, but Scott, Chris, thank you so much. If you would like to be able to book your complimentary financial compass review, all you need to do to claim yours is call that number that you see on the bottom of your screen, 888-970-4685. What will happen is you'll be able to schedule a time to come in and meet with Chris and Scott and the team of Bulman Wealth to talk about these tax planning strategies, to talk about anything that's on your mind of concern as it relates to your financial and retirement planning needs. Or if you'd rather connect via smartphone, we can do that too. If you simply pull out your phone, open up that camera app, you can point, click, and scan that QR code that you see there down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team from Bulman Wealth Group will reach out to connect with you to schedule your complimentary visit that way as well. When we come back, I'm going to be asking Chris and Scott to go through the different types of income that the IRS can't touch and what strategies you can even begin implementing today. Stay with us.
I became a financial advisor coming out of the tough times of the tech bubble in the late 90s, early 2000s. Moved to California, uprooted my life, changed everything, and then 9/11 happened the first week in this industry. I was prepared already to help people from tough times coming out of the tech bubble, but what we didn't expect is there were 3 years in a row when I started of the market dropping. That really impacted my whole career. It crafted and created how we manage money. We don't want our clients to ever lose like that. And so everything we do is built on goal of our practice and the people that we meet with is to remove the fear and uncertainty that we all face. And it goes back to those first years in the market.
I was a sportscaster on television. I grew up in Flint, Michigan. In TV, you bounce around and went to Mississippi and worked at the NBC station there and covered, college football's big, NFL's big, all that stuff. And a guy I knew relatively well in a different state decided to get out of TV, and in this opportunity, I always enjoyed finance and money, and it seemed really exciting. I like to communicate to folks and feel like I can communicate well. It was such a fresh, kind of different career than what I was used to that it was exciting.
We go into every meeting with no place to get. We're there to meet with you, to discover your needs, find out where you are at that point, and how we can help you build and craft that plan for the future.
Well, welcome back. You're watching Your Financial Compass, brought to you by the team of Bulman Wealth Group. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with both Chris Bulman and Scott Bullan. Today's show is called How to Remove Your Wealth from Washington, and we've talked a lot about the importance of paying attention to your potential tax liability in retirement. It's time now to go through some of the types of income that the IRS can't touch. So let's go through. We've got an extensive list here. What is the first thing at the top of this list of what folks can be doing even now to help mitigate their tax liability?
Oh, you said the IRS can't touch. They're certainly trying, and they will try with this. In my opinion, one of the most powerful places you can put money is either a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k. And you've probably heard that, maybe you know exactly what it is, but essentially you're funding it with money that's already been taxed. So once it goes in, everything you put in plus all the gains are tax-free forever. And if we think tax rates are going to go up, say we're tapping into this money 20 years from now, it's immune from the hands of the IRS. So one big differentiating factor between a Roth IRA and a Roth 401k is a Roth IRA is done outside of work. And you can only do, if you're over 50, only $8,000 a year contribution. However, if you make too much income, you can't even do one. The difference is in what a powerful tool is what's called a Roth 401k. This is something that you have through your workplace. And if you're over 30 or over 50, you can put in just over $30,000 a year into it, and your income doesn't matter. So it's a considerably higher amount of what you can put into that is what you can put into a Roth IRA. But like we said, you're getting the taxes out of the way now, and this is something you could change tomorrow. I saw a stat, 88% of companies offer a Roth 401k. So
and that's newer.
It's newer, just the last several years. So if you don't know if you have one, ask HR, do we have a Roth 401k? If you don't, ask why not and say, can we get one? And if you're used to putting money into that traditional 401k, I would give strong consideration to putting those contributions into the Roth 401k and getting the taxes done with now when we're at historically low income tax rates.
Yep, for sure. Well, there's also a strategy that I know you guys are very passionate about helping folks do, and that's the Roth conversion. So talk about that, because so many folks worked for years and they didn't even have the Roth 401k option. So what can be done now on that later on in life to be able to convert what it has been tax deferred into a Roth?
Yeah, there are nuances to all of these things. One of the nuances to what Scott was just talking about before I answer that question was on the Roth 401k. You should know that even if you're contributing to a Roth, if the company matches, the company is generally going to match in a traditional.
Right.
And that's because the company wants to be able to write that off, of course. So
Yep.
you're still going to be building that traditional bucket, even though your goal is to build the Roth.
Yep.
So that's a nuance on that one. As far as, what was the
Roth conversion.
Yeah, the Roth conversion is important. Roth conversion, I think, can be confusing for a lot of people because it's not the ideal thing to do for everyone. If you're never going to be in a high income bracket, maybe you're about to retire, you have $200,000, you don't have a ton of income, maybe you own some rentals or some dividend income, or everything's paid off. You just don't live an extravagant lifestyle. It may be the worst thing to do to contribute, that $200,000. And if you're going to do it, we look at it in terms of the IRS taxable table. So if you're already in, let's say, the 22% bracket, maybe we go ahead and take enough from your IRA out as income. We convert that into the Roth, but that's going to be charged as income to your income taxes. So we only want to go up to that next tax limit. We don't want to bump you into the next tax bracket.
Right.
And if we do, it's only 24%. Maybe that's not a big deal, but you don't want to bump up from 24 into the next one because that's a big jump. But when you convert that money from a traditional, whether it's 401k or IRA, into a Roth, taxes are going to be due by that next year on April 15th. The best way to do it, if you can afford it, is to pay the taxes out of your money that's in cash. Because what other time can you jam that much money into a Roth IRA, right? So another way to do it, if you don't have the money in the cash, in a cash bucket, is just to withhold money for the taxes. But again, you don't get as big of a bang for your buck. So there's a lot of nuance to it.
And it's understanding the difference between a Roth conversion and a Roth contribution.
Yes.
A contribution is when you're putting in, you're capped out at $8,000. Roth conversion, you can do $1 million a year. You wouldn't, because it'd be a taxable nightmare. But the IRS does love the Roth conversions. They're good for our clients when it makes sense, but the IRS loves them because they're getting their taxes sooner than they thought. But it's one of those things, taxes are a thorn in a lot of our sides, and if we've been putting money into these 401ks for years, you got a lot of money in an IRA, and you're like, gosh, I know this is going to be an issue for me, then it makes sense to call our office, call the number below. You can scan it with your phone, schedule a time to talk, and we can see how it affects you. As Chris said, it doesn't make sense in every situation, but I do think it makes sense to look at in every situation and see the nuances, and there's a lot of different things to factor. We've worked with people, CPAs, to walk them through this to see what what is the threshold of what they can convert or not, and just working in conjunction with them so we're getting the most efficiency out of it. But this is an area that we've guided a lot of clients through.
Yeah, and ideally, there's always going to be, in most things good, there's short-term pain for long-term gain. It would be painful if you convert $100,000 and now you owe $30-some thousand in taxes, right?
For sure, yep.
But what's the benefit 20 years down the road, or legacy-wise? What's the benefit to your heirs? So it's really important to think about it in those terms as well.
Well, it just really speaks to the fact, and we say this on the show a lot, right? How you make a decision in one area of your financial life can and will affect all the others. So if you're looking for strategic ways to create greater tax efficiency throughout your full financial plan, we invite you to come in, take advantage of this opportunity to get your complimentary financial compass review. To claim yours, all you need to do is call that number on the bottom of your screen, 888-970-4685, or again, you're welcome to take out your smartphone, just scan that QR code down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and that will get you connected as well. More ways on how you can remove your wealth from Washington right after this.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter, the one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Welcome back, California. You're watching Your Financial Compass, brought to you by the team of Bulman Wealth Group. I'm Kristen Oakley here with both Chris Bulman and Scott Villan. We've been talking today about how to remove your wealth from Washington. And we've talked already about Roth income, Roth conversion strategies. What are some other strategies that you were able to help your clients to do, not only to engage in strategic tax planning for themselves, but also from a legacy perspective?
Yeah. I'll just quickly mention this. We talked about Roth conversions earlier. One thing, say you've got money in a traditional IRA and you pass away, if you leave it to your spouse, then they essentially inherit it as if it was always theirs.
Right.
And then, with RMDs and how they treat it. It's a lot different. Now, they changed the rules a couple years ago, where if you're leaving, say an IRA to a non-spouse, say you leave it to your kids, well, now they're left with this large amount of money in many cases. They have a 10-year window where they need to liquidate it.
They have to
They
within
have
10
to.
years. Yep.
So another reason where you can say leaving behind Roth money is not only is it saving you taxable income in the future, but when you leave Roth money to your children, if you have children, well, they receive it tax-free. So the burden has already been covered. The IRS doesn't even care about it at that point. So that's another reason Roth conversions come in terms of leaving that money behind. It helps you, but also helps your beneficiaries in terms of receiving Roth money versus traditional IRA money.
Right.
Yeah, and I would say, we say a lot that we don't know what we don't know. It sounds funny, but if you think about it, we don't know what we don't know. And one of these rules was the stretch IRA. The stretch IRA, our entire careers, we learned about the stretch IRA and how you could pass your IRA down to the next generation, and then they could take required minimum distributions, and then they could pass it down to their children and their children.
It was over their whole lifetime. They weren't confined, right?
Yeah, it was income for the rest of all of your family's lives forever. But that rule changed.
Right.
And if you don't know that the rule changed, you need to find out how it's going to impact you. So now, let's say that you're 55 years old and you have an 80-year-old parent that has $2 million in an IRA. When you inherit that $2 million, you have to take all of that income within the next 10 years. So if you're already making as a family maybe $200,000 or $300,000 a year, and now you're going to have to take at least another $200,000 a year for the next 10 years, you've just bumped yourself up to the highest tax bracket. You're going to be writing a check for $100,000 at the end of the year or something. I mean, it's insane what it's going to do to your tax bracket. So it's important to understand how that's going to work, and are there any things that your parents can do along the way, or that you can encourage them to do, like come to meet with Bulman Wealth Group to get things done properly.
Right. And you do a lot of that. You do a lot of intergenerational planning for families,
Absolutely.
right?
Whether it's with respect to that specific example, or if it's estate planning. A lot of times people come in and talk to us, we want to have our estate plan done, we want to have our trust set up. And then the more they talk to us, about durable powers of attorney and will, and how the money's going to go to the next generation, and the house is titled properly, they start saying, oh my gosh, my parents don't have any of this done.
Right.
What's going to happen to me? And the answer is you're going to be in court for the next year and a half. It'll take at least a year to get started, to go through probate. It's going to be a mess.
Right.
So we want to be thinking of things in terms of how does it affect our financial life, but also the ones we care about, the ones we love, our parents and our children.
Right.
One thing Chris mentioned with home, having a home, especially in California, and leaving it to another generation, is a lot of times we have a lot of clients that say they moved into the Bay Area when the Bay Area wasn't as cool as it is now, and the value of their house just skyrocketed. They bought it for $200,000, now it's worth $3 million. And I've had clients ask, well, I want to have my children as a co-owner. I say, time out, because as the law stands now, if you're the sole owner, as say the parent, if you pass away and leave that within a trust, you leave that house to your kid, they get what's called a step up in cost basis, meaning all those gains that you had from buying it for $200,000, now it's worth $3 million, get wiped away. So we always say, don't put the kid on the title, or don't. Sometimes folks are almost landlocked to that house too. It's like, well, I want to move to a different state, but if I sell this house, I'm going to get reamed in capital gains taxes.
I think of my parents at Lake Tahoe. That's the situation, right?
Yeah, they're kind of stuck there, which it's a good problem to have in a way. Yeah, there's not in Bakersfield, but we only even say that because someone was here laughing about that earlier from that area. But being aware of not just the cash investments, but the house aspect of that step up, and let's hope they don't change that in terms of the IRS ruling.
And there's also upper limits to how wealthy you can be before the government wants their share. This is different in every state.
Right.
But federally, there's the federal estate tax, and there's an upper limit right now. It's over 13 million or so per person, and it changes. Why I say or so because it changes usually every year. So if your estate's above that, let's say you're above 26 million, you're both still alive, you might want to be giving money away to every kid you know, have, grandchild.
Those financial gifts that you can start to...
Because otherwise, if you don't, whatever you don't give will be taxed at 44% anyway.
And they'll change that rule. They're going to change that estate.
Yeah, it's going to sunset in the next
level.
2 years. It could come all the way back down to 6 million per spouse. So now all of a sudden in California, if you just own a few houses, you're already worth 4 to 12 million. So what do? You need to start getting some of that money out of your estate. Now, the only reason you wouldn't is if you're just focused on dying with the biggest bag of money attached to your name. But what's the point to that? The idea is to think about where you want your money to go, what is the point of this money, and then start planning for that. If the point is to leave a legacy, let's start leaving the legacy to the people you want to leave it to, or the foundations, or the school, but not necessarily the federal government.
Not to the IRS, right? Yep, and that's the whole point of today's show, right? How to remove your wealth from Washington. So, and I know we've got less than a minute here. What would you say to our viewers at home who are going, gosh, I've never thought about some of these things. Maybe some of this was new information today.
Yeah, it's a lot of folks haven't thought about it, or they try not to think about it because it's only causes stress. You're like a lot of folks. Just call us. We'll have a discussion. You can scan the QR code. You can call our number. Go to the website. Chris doesn't know what camera.
I'm trying to do it like Chris does.
We're on this camera. Over here. Call us and we can have a conversation. We'll talk about all the different financial things to consider, but especially taxes because that's such a thorn in people's side. So we love to have that conversation. We've navigated other clients through it, and we can see where it leads us in our conversation.
Wonderful. Scott, Chris, thank you so much. We love you, California. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you here next time on Your Financial Compass.